Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maggie Weiland, and I'm the director of the Entertainment Commission. On behalf of my entire staff and commission, welcome to San Francisco's 11th annual virtual Nightlife and Entertainment Summit. Thank you so much for being here today. I want to give a very special thanks to Manny Yekutiel, who owns and runs a civic gathering space called Manny's in the Intermission, and has pivoted his in-person programming to be virtual since the shelter-in-place started. Manny, thank you for hosting us today, and thank you to Sam Favela, who works with Manny and is managing the technology for this year's summit, something that we could definitely not do on our own. I also want to thank all of my commissioners, including Ben Bleiman, Dory Camino, Dave Falzon, Laura Thomas, Stephen Lee, and Al Perez, who did the graphics for our event today. Thank you, Al. My commissioners are true thought partners in this work. And thank you to my wonderful staff, Caitlin, Dylan, Crystal, Jordan, Tony, and Mike for their unwavering support of this community. This past December, I was able to see all of your faces in person at our holiday party, and it was so wonderful. That night, I talked about all of the incredible progress our commission had made in the previous year, and we celebrated the fact that entertainment and nightlife's annual economic impact in San Francisco had increased by $3 billion since 2010, generating a total of $7.3 billion annually for this city. A lot has changed since that night. COVID-19 has dramatically impacted life in San Francisco and across the world. Today, we will hear from local government and industry leaders about the latest in San Francisco's response to this pandemic, and we will discuss the impacts to date on the local nightlife and entertainment industry. We're also here today to reinforce the strength of this community. Nightlife and entertainment leaders like yourselves are strong and gritty. You are risk takers, you are creative and dynamic, and you understand more than most the power of gathering. Today, we are gathered together, albeit virtually, to share in the currency of this unique and challenging moment, and to hopefully learn from and lean on one another. I miss my permit holders and seeing all of you in person, both at our businesses and at City Hall. I miss our Entertainment Commission hearings, and I miss our open door policy at City Hall. If I could see you all right now, I'd probably see hundreds of my favorite San Franciscans. When I took this role, I believed in an open door policy. I wanted to take down all of the perceived barriers of getting an entertainment permit. And here we are in week 10 of this shelter in place, and just please know that I still feel this way and will continue to advocate for you and lead with the same principles I had when I took this position. Thank you all for being here today and tuning in to these discussions. And thank you to all of our speakers and panelists for participating in this important event. I just wanted to go through some quick housekeeping items before we get started today. First, today's summit will be recorded. Second, as an attendee of this Zoom webinar, your face and voice will not be seen or heard unless you're a panelist. So if you have questions during the Q&A portions of our two panels, I encourage you to submit them using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. Third, you can view today's agenda on our Eventbrite registration page, which is linked on our website, as well as our social media accounts. And finally, we will end today's summit in true EC fashion by hosting a happy hour. The virtual happy hour is hosted on a separate Zoom when the summit programming concludes. That link will be displayed at the end of today's event, and you can also find it on our Eventbrite page or in your registration email. Thank you in advance to Macondre, a bar and restaurant in Russian Hill, and owners Aaron Paul and Jake Roberts for hosting our virtual happy hour. Aaron will be playing music to get the dance party going, and for this Zoom, you'll all be on mute so that you can enjoy the music, but your faces will actually be visible that time, and you'll be able to use group and direct chat to talk to each other. So, without further ado, I am very honored to introduce our first speaker of the day, my boss, and let me tell you, she is the boss, Mayor of the City and County of San Francisco, London Breed. Looks like she's coming on.
You're there
Yes.
now. Can you see me and hear me?
Yeah, hey.
Hey, Maggie.
Thanks for
How you
coming,
doing?
Mary. I'm good. Thanks for being here.
Good. Well, your hair looks good.
Thank you. I curled it for the first time in a couple months today for you.
Nice. Nice. Well, good afternoon. You want me to get started?
Yeah, get going. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys are going to party with all the music and stuff and the little virtual time that you're going to have. I know this is tough for all of us, especially in nightlife, because really coming together, hanging out with one another, and talking face to face. It's why we enjoy our nightlife community so much. And good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be speaking at the Entertainment Commission's 11th annual summit in support of our local nightlife and entertainment industry. And as you know, this year's summit looks a little bit different than last year, and fingers crossed that we'll be able to get together next year in person. And although we are physically apart, it's incredible that this community is still able to come together to share ideas and really lift up each other so that we can emerge from these challenging times stronger than ever before. The entertainment industry is facing unprecedented challenges due to the coronavirus. And I know so many of you are like, when are we going to open? When are we going to open? I'm dying to open myself. I want to really acknowledge how difficult this has been and continues to be for our small business owners and employees, especially your employees and your patrons and the people who love and miss your businesses. I know there's so many community people that just can't wait until you reopen. We know that the coronavirus has really taken away your ability to gather face to face over a meal on the dance floor, at the bar, and it's impacted, our experiences around enjoying art and music and culture amongst our peers. I mean, something as simple as, hanging out and hearing great music together is now put on pause. But this pandemic has not taken away our identity, our ability to adapt, to change, and to demonstrate resilience as a community and as a city. As you can see from this summit, adapting to a happy hour afterwards with music and just looking at all of your faces online is something that I think all of you will enjoy. We've seen our small business owners rise to the occasion over the past 2 months, changing their entire business models so that they can continue to serve the community while protecting public health. In fact, in ordering from some of the restaurants, they do really cute drinks where you can buy drinks from restaurants that they make, and they put them in these little jars all screwed in or whatever. It's very creative and very fun. Despite the economic odds, our small businesses are still putting their community first and adapting. We have seen businesses supporting one another and serving those needs, all while they are struggling to make ends meet, like even starting GoFundMe accounts for their employees, which has been pretty incredible. Our entertainment industry is fierce, and I know that this industry, of all industries, will do everything it can to survive. The cultural loss we are feeling right now will not last forever. What makes San Francisco unique really is our ability to get creative and to lift each other up in times of need. Our culture and our identity is what's going to get us through this. The whole world is watching San Francisco right now. We have made headlines across the country, and we've been cited as a national model in fighting the pandemic. We are doing this in partnership with our public health experts, including Dr. Aragón, who you will hear from shortly. Our priority is the health and safety of all San Franciscans, and I'm proud of how this city has come together to respond to this crisis. It's because of all of you that we are now seeing a small decline in the curve. Our total case rate is low, our death rate is low, and we are planning for our economic recovery. We were called a national model in how we shut things down, and now we will be called a national model for how we open things back up. And our nightlife is such a critical part of that. I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to going to get my hair done and my nails and going to our fitness salons and our studios and our workplaces. And I heard some people say, I don't go to church, but if churches open up, I'm going to church. I can't wait to get back to some of your establishments. I'm personally excited to really sit down and have a meal with a friend or go hear some live music or watch the Warriors, Giants, or Niners play. Most importantly, to see everyone in person. We are going to get to that day. We're getting back there slowly, cautiously, safely, but we will get there. And so I want to thank you all for your patience while we're going through this. It's because of you that we are seeing the curve flatten and decline. It's because of your commitment to continuing to hang in there while we're dealing with this real challenge. It's what makes San Francisco so special. My commitment is to continue to support the Entertainment Commission and the industry in addressing these challenges and making the city we all love shine. You are an important part of doing that. Thank you for joining us today. Enjoy your time this summit and enjoy your happy hour. Get up and dance and listen to the music and feel free. Trust me, it'll make you feel better. Thanks again, Maggie.
All right, I think I'm off mute now.
You're off mute.
Thank you, such weird times. It was an honor having you here with us today.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you. Next up on our summit agenda is the City and County's Health Officer and Director of the Population Health Division at the San Francisco Department of Public Health, Dr. Tomás Aragón. Dr. Aragón will provide us an update on San Francisco's efforts to protect community health. So let's see if we can bring him on.
Okay, there we go.
Dr. Aragón, thanks for joining us today. I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, so I'm here. My name is Dr. Tomás Aragón. I'm the Health Officer of San Francisco. Right now, I'm here at the Emergency Operations Center at the Moscone Center. I come here every single day, and everyone has been working incredibly hard across the whole city. So I've been very, very, very grateful. And first of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a native San Franciscan, and so for me, this has been a really difficult situation, but also a situation where I'm proud of how much we've been able to accomplish. What I tell folks is that San Francisco dodged the bullet. We did an amazing job. Just to give you an idea of how successful we were. If you compare San Francisco to a place like New York City in terms of, while one death is too many, we know that San Francisco compared to New York City, our death rate or mortality rate is 35 times, New York's is 35 times higher than ours. Los Angeles is 4 times higher than ours. The Big Cities Health Coalition did an evaluation of how many hospitalizations were impacted. So we prevented over 38,000 hospitalizations and over 3,800 deaths. It's important to appreciate, had we experienced all those hospitalizations, we would be much worse off today than we are right now. We would still have the shutdown, but we'd have all the economic consequences of all those deaths. So in that sense, we have done an incredible job. We're now in a transition phase. The hospitalizations have gone down, the number of cases have gone down, and we're beginning to open up the economy. Just today, curbside pickup for over close to 95% of retail businesses is now open. The other part that's open is the manufacturing and warehouse supply chain to all those businesses is now opening. And in the coming weeks, you will begin to see more and more economic activity. Carmen Chu and Ben Rosenfield are leading a economic recovery task force that's really taken over, looking at the business, and it's going to look at everything across the city under a framework that's coming from Governor Newsom at the state, where they have staged out stage 1, stage 2. We're currently in the beginnings of stage 2. We're going to take that larger framework, and within that framework, we're going to evaluate what we can open up in a safer way and start with that. And as long as we continue to do well in terms of our hospitalization and number of cases, then we will continue to open up. So everyone is very committed to continuing to move this forward. what is also true is that we're asking everybody as we move forward, we're asking the general public to think of three things. As we move forward and we begin to open up, we ask them to really continue to focus on physical distancing, face coverings, and what you will see over time is we want people to get tested. Test, 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 even if you have no symptoms, because that will be the backbone of the foundation of our surveillance system that we're really going to need to keep a track on this epidemic. If we have any issues, we want to investigate it and mitigate any problems that we have. Our goal is to move forward, not to move backwards. And the only way we're going to do that is to continue to be really rigorous in terms of our public health activities. So those are the key comments that I wanted to make. I'm sure there's many questions, and I'm going to turn it back over to Maggie unless there's any questions folks have for me. Maggie, was that okay?
Thanks, Dr. Aragon. I will let you know if there's any questions I can you directly afterward, but I don't see any in our Q&A box. So
great.
Thanks for joining us from the EOC, and thanks for everything that you're doing for the city. All right, so let's see what's up next. Now we have our first moderator of the day who's about to come on board for our first panel of the day, the impact of COVID-19 on the local economy. So to introduce our panelists, we have Manny Yekutiel. Hi, Manny.
Hi.
Hi, there you are. As I mentioned earlier, and I believe many of you know, Manny owns and runs a civic engagement space in the Mission called Manny's. Manny, we're really happy to have you here with us today, not only as a co-host of the summit, thank you, but as a seasoned moderator and leader of civic discussions. So I will let you take it from here and introduce everyone else.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and thanks to the oodles and oodles of people who are tuned in right now. Really appreciate you tuning in. Let's get this show on the road. My name is Manny, and as Maggie mentioned, I own Manny's in the Mission, and I'm honored, deeply honored to co-host this Entertainment Commission's first virtual summit. And no biggie, the panel that I'm moderating is called The Impact of COVID-19 on the Local Economy. Right, okay, a doozy. Let's start. I'm first gonna tell you about our panelists, and then we're gonna bring them on. So we've got Naomi Kelly. She is the city administrator of San Francisco. And in this role, she oversees a whole lot of things, including the city's general service agency, which consists of more than 25 city agencies, including the Entertainment Commission. Then we've got Joaquín Torres, who is the director of the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, which works to support workforce development, business development, neighborhood economic development, as well as film, small business, and development planning. So all of us on this call, he's involved in what we're doing. And then finally, the ever-colorful Ted Egan, who is the city's chief economist, and he directs the Office of Economic Analysis in the city's controller's office. So we have Naomi, Joaquin, and Ted. Are we all here? Familia! Friends! Hi, it's like a reunion.
Hi, Manny.
We're all together! I had individual conversations with each of you three over the last 2 months, and it's so nice to see your glistening faces.
It's always fun to be. We were hoping to see some Bronzino in the background, Manny.
No, I'm in my little mop closet office at Manny's now, not in my kitchen. So you get to see we're back in the space. So
that closet is too small, Manny.
I know, the door's right here and then the wall's right here. So this is literally, it's like a panic room, but I actually like it. We have got some crystals around me and it's fine. We don't have a whole lot of time for pleasantries. This is a really tight schedule. So family, let's just get right into it. It's 15 minutes total for the three of us and then 20 minutes for the three of us and 5 minutes for questions. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna ask a couple questions for each of you, and then we're gonna see if anyone has individual questions, and then y'all can keep going over saving the city or whatever it is you do. Okay? Naomi, are you drinking Earl Grey tea?
Of course.
Good. Okay. Good. I should have had my Earl Grey with me. Amazing. Great. Let's start with you, Ted Egan. Hi. How you doing, friend? Good to see you. So I have a couple questions for you. First is, what do we know about how COVID-19 has already impacted the local economy?
It's been a very severe shock to the local economy. About 18% of the labor force of San Francisco has filed for unemployment in the past 2 months.
Wow.
We've never had an unemployment rate that high in San Francisco for as long as we've kept those records.
Whoa. How long have we kept those records?
Since the 60s.
Holy moly. 18% is what you said?
18% in 2 months.
Wow. 18% is a good luck number in Judaism, but this is not a good luck number right now. So there you go. What do we know about the impacts of COVID-19 on nightlife to date?
The only real information we have about specific industries comes from national data, but that national data is not pretty. If you look at industries like arts, nightlife, restaurants, bars, their number of jobs in April dropped 50% in 1 month.
Holy moly.
Basically, no other industry was hit as hard as these industries, maybe clothes stores or a couple of other types of retail. But basically, that's half of the entire industry across the United States shut down like that.
Yikes. Okay, so that's kind of what, it's hard to know exactly what the impacts have been, till now, but what do we know about the future? I mean, what trends can we think about, or what can we predict about how COVID-19 might impact both the overall economy of the city and, in general, the overall economy and the nightlife sector moving forward?
I think it has to do with a combination of what's the national recovery look like, and then what does our local policy response look like. In the long term, I'm very optimistic about nightlife in San Francisco. I mean, people are talking about all kinds of big changes in the city after COVID, and maybe people won't commute to offices anymore, or maybe people will shop differently. I don't think anybody is saying like Zoom happy hours are going to be the future of socialization. So
right.
Someday, all of this pent-up demand of people wanting to go out and do stuff is going to fill up our nightlife spaces again.
What I was going to say was, sorry, go ahead.
The real question is how do we get to that stage, and how long does it take?
Right. It's interesting you bring up the work from home thing, because if a lot of these companies say you don't have to commute down to the South Bay, daytime, I don't know, that might actually be helpful to the city's economy in some long-term way. So how has all this impacted the city, and how do you think it's going to impact it in the future, in the kind of moving forward?
I mean, I'm just looking at what the economic forecasters are saying. Everybody knows we're in the worst time. Really, there's never been a quarter that's as bad as what we're going through right now. But on the other hand, almost all of the forecasters are saying by the end of this year, we're going to have growth that's faster than normal. Where they're really different is how long is it going to take to where we got back before? And there's a range of people saying maybe the end of 2021 or maybe a year or two after that. I think the issue for nightlife is what can we do to get nightlife safely operating? How do we get as a city, the caseload and everything else to the point where these businesses can operate? Because compared to the risk profile of some other industries, they're not great. But like as I say, over the long term, I really think that there's no industry that's kind of more rooted in the life and the people of San Francisco, and that there's more reason to be optimistic about it.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions for you. Folks are tuning in. If you have questions for Ted Egan, the chief economist of the city, start typing them in now. Let's go to Joaquín Torres, the director of OEWD. Joaquín, I feel like I've had so many conversations with you over the last couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us right now. So let's just talk about what the available resources and relief currently is for the city, and specifically for the nightlife sector. So what has the city's strategy been for responding to the economic losses that are being experienced by businesses and workers, including the nightlife sector?
Certainly, yeah. And again, thank you so much, Manny. And it really is a pleasure to be on, most especially with the minds that are sharing the panels on the Zoom screen that we have right now. I just, for everyone who's out there who thinks that government is stale and is not proactive or not energetic, I can tell you that in the multiple density of meetings and conversations that have been going on, Naomi and Ted have been there to talk about all of the dense, complex issues that are facing our business community, our cultural community, and our city right now. And you should be, I hope you know how much pressure is resting on these individuals and all of us collectively in the city, because there is so much need. Whether you think about the federal resources, the state resources, or the local resources, and then also philanthropic resources, the main strategy has been to maximize on every single opportunity, coordinate them, make them easily accessible and available, from loans to grants to connections with your lending institutions, to connections with alternative lending institutions, to understanding on the ground what the real needs are, not only by business sector, not only by the nightlife sector, but also by community to community, to making sure that everyone is being addressed where they're at. I think that's been one of the most important parts for us in doing this work. So again, thinking about all the individual workers, 63,000 workers in the nightlife entertainment industry, $7.3 billion worth of economic activity, severely impacted, as Ted was saying. And then our role is making sure that these groups are aware while they're waiting, while you're all waiting, to find out at what phase will we be in again, to realize all that pent-up demand that where people want to be able to enjoy their cultural life again, of which nightlife and entertainment is essential and a core component, that we keep on driving in that direction. But making sure that these institutions, these organizations, these lovely neighborhood joints, city joints, get the respect and the resources that they deserve. Advocating at the federal level, advocating at the state level, focusing on workers, focusing on resources for businesses.
Got it. So what, if you're a nightlife owner, small business owner right now on this call, what are the current or upcoming relief programs that you think, Joaquin, are relevant for nightlife business owners and their employees that you're aware of?
Certainly. So I think it depends on the intricacies of the individual business, about whether a grant is something that can hold someone or whether it's an individual loan that can hold someone. The most favorable, depending on the accessibility currently of the payroll protection program loan, and all the intricacies that are still being worked out right now at the federal level, has been one of the most important loans. Should be someone be able to get them. Also making sure that your workforce who may be impacted. We started a paid sick leave program, Workers and Families First, that was available to individuals. We're working on making our philanthropic dollars available to impacted employees who should not be working but are nervous about working. And making sure that they can be protected during this time. And then for our undocumented population, or those who don't have access to unemployment. Again, remember, unemployment used to be $450 a week. They added $600 a month, $600 a week on top of that, providing some pretty robust benefits if you can get them. If you're not able to because you don't qualify, what resources will be available for you? So we've known that those resources for those communities are available at the state level. We saw some of those rolled down just last week. Those funds made available at the city level through our city partners. And you can find all that information on our website, OEWD.org, whether you're a business, a worker, or a nonprofit.
Super easy to remember, OEWD.org. Let's do a quick involve the audience. So for everyone that's tuning in, could you please raise your hand if you work or own some kind of small business, or you work within the entertainment or nightlife field? Raise your hand if that applies to you. We're gonna let everyone take a second to do that. Okay, a lot of people. Now, raise your hand, keep going. Okay, we have over 200 people that either work in the entertainment industry or own. Now, raise your hand again if you've received some kind of aid, whether it's federal, state, or local, whether it's unemployment or your business's rate. How many of those people that work in the industry have also received aid? So we had about 250 people who work in the industry. I don't know if I'm supposed to say the amount of numbers, and about 150 have received some kind of aid. So there's still about 100 of you out there that need to get some kind of support. Joaquin's your guy, OEWD.org.
And then just the two other components, I know that Naomi will talk about this, just this laser-like focus on reopening.
Yes.
And making sure, I mean, we were very encouraged to hear Tomás Aragón, our health officer, say, you'll see more economic activity in the coming weeks. We weren't certain about that in the beginning based on the health considerations that were had. But I know that our focus on reopening and then also our focus on economic recovery are essential for us moving forward.
All right, last question for you, Joaquin. Director Torres, excuse me.
I'm Joaquin, Manny. I'm Joaquin.
Okay. How can the city work to further support nightlife moving forward?
You're seeing that happening right now through the Recovery Task Force. You have the head of your Entertainment Commission, Ben Bleiman, who's sitting on that. You have representatives from theater, from live performances, from cultural institutions, so that they can be talking about the individual ways in which recovery and going beyond the status quo as we come out of COVID-19 is something that we can take seriously and innovatively, and ensuring that the business community knows, the nightlife entertainment community knows, that there is a government that wants to be responsive to your needs. I think that is one of the most salient points, to make use of the survey that's out there that I know Naomi will talk about, the connection to your representatives on the task force, ensuring that your voices, your priorities are being heard. Nothing is too simple. Nothing is too granular. Every little bit of it matters right now, especially right now, because there's so much information flying at all of us, and we really need the information.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Joaquín Torres. If you have questions for Joaquin, please type them into the Q&A place now, specifically about the Office of Economic and Workforce Development and their work. Naomi!
Manny!
Hi!
Hello.
Good to see you.
Oh.
I have just two real simple questions for you. Just the softballs for you, okay?
Of course.
What is the city's strategy in terms of planning for economic recovery?
A real softball. It's a very complex strategy, but one that we're very excited to be working with all of you who are here tuning into this summit today. There's an economic recovery task force that you've heard Dr. Aragón talk about and Joaquin talk about, that's chaired by Carmen Chu, our assessor, our treasurer, Jose Cisneros, the president of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, Rodney Fong, and Rudy Gonzalez from the Labor Council. And really, they are focused on reopening in a phasing that it will be succinct with not spreading COVID-19, but yet reopening the economy. They're very focused on sustaining and reviving local business employment, mitigating the economic hardships already affecting most of you. And how we do this, as Joaquin said, is by developing and sharing a framework on how we make decisions about reopening. You kind of heard Dr. Aragón talk about a risk-based approach to phasing in the businesses. It's kind of based on what the governor had talked about on phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. And we are putting a risk-based analysis similar to that with our businesses. What businesses have low contact with people, low exposure of risk to COVID-19 versus those who have high risk of exposure to COVID-19 and high contact, and then kind of rating those businesses in between. At the same time, I'm working on a government services reopening plan and layering that together because there's office space. Obviously, working in an office, you could start that up faster because you could social distance, but yet we can telecommute. So if we are metering the number of people in reducing the mobility out there, all of us can telecommute while maybe we let another small business come online to allow more people out there. So we're thinking that way, but we also want to make sure that we're doing this safely to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and making sure that our hospital beds don't start being occupied with COVID-19 patients. So with that, thinking through, we've already got the best practices on health and safety guidelines for essential businesses on the SFGov website. Thinking through how does each sector and each industry open up safely, whether it's ingress and egress and choke points, 6-foot social distancing, facial covers, testing. Do you have access to testing? Do you have access to PPE? These are all things that we need to know. What are the things that can help you open up faster? And as Joaquin had indicated, there's a survey that's gone out that getting your ideas is important. Also, what ideas as we're opening up, and Ted Egan had indicated this, we're all anxious to get back out to our nightlife activities. I may telecommute, but I can't wait to get to go have drinks, go to Manny's, go out. But what are ways that what can we do in the next, year or 18 months to think through what systems can we put in place and how can we think through our businesses and how can we be more innovative? One thing is outdoor spaces, utilizing our outdoor spaces. If we're not going to be out on the streets in our cars, can we move outdoors? Because being outdoors is a lower risk than being indoors.
I love that idea, by the way. I think it's such a great one, personally.
Then how can we help you? Because I want my cocktail outdoors. So what can we do with ABC to help get out there? Only after hours will I have my cocktail for everyone who's listening.
I wouldn't judge you for an early afternoon cocktail.
Yeah, so, those are the ideas. We need those ideas coming fast. We want to help you think innovatively. We want to help. We're writing new systems in place to try and make sure that we have this economy that is, the nightlife is a higher risk, higher contact. What can we do innovatively to get back out there and see each other again?
Awesome. Thank you, Naomi. And I know that the planning is in good hands with you. I just have one more question to you, and then we're going to get to the audience questions, which is, tell me about the city's fundraising to address the COVID impact. I know the city's raising money. What's that all about? How much money has been raised, and kind of tell me about the fundraising that's going on.
Yes, we have a program called Give to SF. It's our COVID-19 Response Recovery Fund that is providing San Francisco with 4 categories. Food security, because we're hearing a lot of folks are going hungry, and we're getting the gift certificates to food and making sure they get meals delivered to them. Access to housing. A lot of folks are having a hard time, if not with rent, but like insurance, utility bills. And so having funding to help with staying secure in their housing. And then making sure that we are providing resources for our workers and our small businesses. And giving out zero free interest small business loans through the great work of Joaquín Torres, and making sure that we really help our undocumented workers because they can't access many of the federal funds that are coming down this way. To date, we have a total of $26.3 million received.
Yay!
Yes, and a big dollar amount came in just recently from Jack Dorsey, $15 million for his hashtag Start Small to support undocumented, mixed status, and low-income households. So we're very excited about that. And so far, we've been trying to, as soon as the money comes in, we've been trying to distribute it as fast as possible because we're hearing that people can't get access to it fast. So we've issued $9.8 million and dispersed it to city agencies that have identified programs within the buckets I talked about: food security, access to housing, and supporting small businesses and workers.
Nice.
And again, I'm just making the announcement. Joaquin has really done a lot of that great work in making sure he's getting to those nonprofits and out. So big kudos to Joaquín Torres.
The city administrator,
I feel like this is like kind of not Power Rangers, but Captain Planet a little bit. And you've got like Earth, Wind, Hartz. And it's like between the 3 of you, I feel like a lot of problems can get solved. So let's go to audience questions. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes for this, so we're going to try to get them real quick. First question, I think, is for you, Ted, from someone named God, which is, I assume it's not God. If it is, hi. What is the expected unemployment rate in the next 3 months, and what % do you predict to be from arts and hospitality businesses?
It wouldn't surprise me if we saw 10 to 15% unemployment through September. And frankly, like I said before, arts entertainment is one of the hardest hit sectors. It's probably going to stay that way for that period of time.
Got it. And from Jocelyn Kane, Ted, can you report the timeline to get back to where we were before COVID?
I think people's best case scenario just for the economy overall is end of next year, end of 2021. And that's like business activity to get back to full employment. You could be talking 2023, 2024.
Got it. Stephen Raspa, this is a question I think for Naomi or Joaquin. When do we think street fairs and outdoor events may be possible again? What population restrictions might there be, or will it depend on demonstrating ability to meet safety precautions?
Joaquin, you want to take that one? Your team is leading.
Yeah, I would say it's in the later phases of this process, especially when you're starting to look at the density of people that would be coming into that space. I mean, the moment that I start thinking about civic celebrations again, we know what those feel like and what those look like. As we start establishing more norms incrementally, as we begin to open up over the next few weeks, in these very strategic, measured ways that we can monitor and at the same time layer in testing and tracing infrastructure for ourselves, we may be able to move faster down the line, but we really are looking at that much, much further down the road.
Got it. All right. This is a two-part question from two different people, but they're associated. One is from Chelsea, which is, what can self-employed event producers do? There's some issues around receiving aid because you're self-employed and you're producing events, and it's hard because you're not producing a lot of live events these days. And then the second is, Natasha asked, basically, what do we do for all the livelihood of all the artists who we were booking and now are not getting any bookings? How do we make sure that the artist community survives these months before they can go back to making a living?
Yeah, on the art side, I mean, that was one of the first investments that the mayor made in terms of working artists funds through Naomi's organization, through the Grants for the Arts, to make sure that those working artists, like I used to be back in the day, actually have access to resources beyond just unemployment. I mean, it's really real, especially, so many of us who have friends in the entertainment business who were hoping that maybe the fall season would be there for them. They're seeing that it's not. They thought maybe the spring season would be there for them. It seems like maybe it will be, but again, a lot of question marks there. So the investment in those stipends, loans for cultural institutions makes a huge difference. And then also making sure that people are going after unemployment, just getting in there and being told no as opposed to assuming it is the most important part. They should be able to access those funds. And when you're talking about around a $26 an hour unemployment benefit that you're receiving, it's something that should definitely be taken advantage of during this time.
Okay, we have 1 minute, so I'm gonna get a real quick one in. Naomi, real quick, I know Maggie's here to shoot me off, but event venues, who's gonna make the decision about when they get reopened? Is that a city decision, or is the state gonna be able to decide that?
It will be a regional decision. It'll be the city, and we're working and we're looking at the state's guidelines, but you have to remember COVID-19 is very regional.
Yeah.
And so we will, the phasings that that I talked about earlier, we will be looking at that, using that risk-based analysis, looking at our 5 indicators that the health officer has published about, the number of cases, our access to PPE, our testing capability. I think we have to really ramp up our testing and our contract tracing. And once we get and hit those indicators, then I think the venues will open back up. But I really do think they're the last in the phase.
Okay, that was a question from Rick Hearns. Rick, thank you for that question. Team Captain Planet rings in. Did any of you even watch Captain Planet? Is that just going right over your head?
Yeah, sorry.
Maggie, you know the reference I'm going for. I'm definitely Hart. I feel like that was my personal person, but I had a crush on Fire, if anyone else remembers that. Fire was really attractive. Maggie, back to you.
Oh, thank you all so much for being on this panel today. I know that, you have a lot of other things going on. Oh, cheers, Joaquin.
Thank you.
See you at a real bar maybe soon. Okay, bye, Ted. Bye, Manny. Thank you. Oh, they were all so wonderful. Okay, so we're moving on to our second panel of the day, and we're right on time. I'm really proud of all of our technology endeavors here. So our next panel of the day is called The Future of Nightlife in the COVID-19 Era and Beyond. Kind of a big deal. So I would like to introduce our moderator, Owen Thomas. Owen Thomas is the business editor of the San Francisco Chronicle. Hey, Owen. He supervises the Chronicle's business and technology coverage. Owen, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to let you take it away and bring on all the other panelists.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Maggie. And thank you to the SFMTA for my background here. Maybe we'll see the boat tram out again. We're here to talk about the future of nightlife. What is coming, what we're going to expect in this kind of interim, ever-changing period until we can really see nightlife venues open their doors again. I am joined today by Ben Bleiman, who's the president of the San Francisco Entertainment Commission, by Julia Hartz, who is the co-founder and CEO of Eventbrite, a company that is very important to the local entertainment economy. Lynn Schwartz, who's the co-owner of Bottom of the Hill, a great music venue. And Kim Stone, who's the general manager of the very recently opened Chase Center. So thank you all for coming. And let's see. Looks like we have Lynn and Kim and Julia and Ben. We're all here virtually. So if we could begin just by going around and introducing ourselves. I, of course, I'm at the Chronicle. We cover nightlife as a business sector. And I'd like to hear kind of your role, a bit more about your role in entertainment in San Francisco. We'll begin with you.
Hey everyone, Ben Bleiman here. If you don't know me, I'm the president of the Entertainment Commission currently. I own a few bars in San Francisco and a dispensary, California Street Cannabis Co-op on Nob Hill. I also have been an advocate for nightlife for a number of years now, almost a decade. I'm the founder of the San Francisco Bar Owner Alliance. We have more than 400 individual bar owners in a group, fairly active, mostly on Facebook. And I'm also of the California Music and Culture Association, which is the trade association that represents bars and nightclubs and music venues in San Francisco.
All right, and Julia, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I'm Julia Hartz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Eventbrite. I am a Bay Area native. I grew up in Santa Cruz, and we started Eventbrite in 2006 in a windowless conference room in a warehouse in Potrero Hill. And my husband and I and third co-founder are still working on the business today, and we live in San Francisco.
All right, and Lynn, go for it.
Hi, I'm so honored to be on this illustrious panel. Thanks for your confidence, Maggie. My name is Lynn Schwarz. I am co-owner and head booker at Bottom of the Hill nightclub, and we've been around 29 years. About to pursue legacy status, actually. Should we survive, we will survive. And we've been hosting bands 5 to 7 nights a week, 3 to 4 bands a night. And I started at the bottom as a cook 25 years ago. So a lot of our customers actually haven't been alive as long as I've been there. And I'm really looking forward to digging in with you guys. Thank you.
All right, and Kim.
Hi, everybody. Kim Stone, General Manager at Chase Center, proud home of the world champion Golden State Warriors. We were only open 6 months and then we had to shut down. But I echo everybody else's sentiments. We will get through this together. I've only been in the Bay Area for a year. I spent the last 13 years running American Airlines Arena in Miami and went through a couple of hurricanes and MERS and SARS epidemics that happened there. This is on a whole different level. But I love San Francisco, have loved it since I was a kid. So when I got the opportunity to come here, I jumped at the chance and look forward to welcoming all of you when we get back to normal.
So speaking of things not being normal, I want to start off just by kind of acknowledging the situation that we all find ourselves in. You know, we have left the 901 Mission newsroom, which is a space that's very near and dear to our hearts, and it's hard for us working from home and only having some of our reporters and photographers out there in the community. How are you all holding up?
I feel like, you know, when a president becomes president and they age very quickly over the course of a few years, like in Indiana Jones when he drinks from the wrong chalice and he immediately starts to age. I feel like all of these gray beards are from these gray hairs in my beard are from the last 9 weeks. I was looking pretty young and sprightly before this started, but every day is an adventure. So
I'm past the bad panic attacks are over, but and I have a lovely home and with my dog and husband and mosaics and music. It's okay, but I am actually terrified for not only our economy, but my business, but mostly for our employees and all of the employees out there in this line of work.
Lynn, I think it's really important to kind of have us acknowledge those feelings and talk about them. Julia, it's kind of a cliche that, you know, the IPO is just the beginning for a company. It's not kind of the end state for a startup, but you're really living that now. Your company
right, that was day one, and now this is day zero. So who knew? You know, it's to watch some, and just like, you know, Lynn said, to you know, work on a business for 15 years, and then one day wake up and have the premise for that entire business to be not there is surreal. So it's been 82 days of complete firefighting, and we've gone through a lot of hardship over the last couple of months, but nothing is comparable to you know, the customers and the small businesses that use Eventbrite. And so we are just every day buoyed by their perseverance and resilience and ingenuity, and just trying to keep up. On a brighter note, I guess, no pun intended, I would say that the last few weeks have brought us some really exciting signs of new growth of businesses and reimagining businesses to keep communities together online, like we're doing right now. And also just a ton of pent-up demand from consumers to meet, you know, once it's safe again. So I try to focus on the glass half full of this puzzle. But those analogies don't work, but you know what I mean.
Kim, this is not what you were envisioning for 2020 for the Chase Center, I take it.
Never in my wildest dreams. Can you, this is what horror movies are the foundation for, is something like this, and moving your family.
Don't watch Contagion. Don't watch Contagion.
Too late.
Too late.
That is true. So it has been surreal on many levels, and I want to echo what Lynn said. You know, it's about the staff getting through this and doing what we can to help them both mentally and, you know, financially where we can. I know there's limitations to that, but it has been incredible to open this beautiful building and have almost 80 events, and then have to just like slam on the brakes, run into a brick wall, and shut it all down and winterize the venue. You know, these are very different times, things that I've never had to do before because we always had events. But we've pivoted, and much like Julia said, like we're just working hard and making sure that we're ready and prepared for whatever is going to come. And that's all we can do.
So I think that is a big part of what we want to talk about here is what is coming next. How do you see your businesses adapting and changing? I mean, you know, for me, I've seen all of these drag queens I follow on Twitter doing Zoom and Patreon and kind of keeping that, you know, that nightclub experience alive virtually, keeping a connection with their fans. It's obviously not the same, but there might even be like a broadening out that's happening of their fan base. Is there some upside here? How should we be looking at it? And what role does, you know, do new technologies and new ways of connecting play in kind of our evolution from here?
I could chime in and tell you what we've seen on the platform thus far. And like I said, we're, you know, our customers who we call event creators are leading the way for sure. We saw online events on the platform up 2,000% in April alone, and that continues to rise as people are seeking each other out online to really connect with their community, but then also to break down the geographic boundaries that usually constrained a local event. Most of our customers are, again, professional small businesses that are now reaching larger global audiences, and I think that's an unlock that I don't see going away post-COVID. But it varies by format in terms of how engaging it is. You know, so you can't actually replicate being in the same room with other humans and having, and you know, creating an indelible memory together. So we firmly believe at Eventbrite that desire to connect in person is going to really like be this voracious appetite that brings live experiences back and venues back. But we see this other part of the entrepreneurialism on the platform playing out, where like craft breweries are shipping out beer and then doing these really cool tastings, you know, now nationally. And people are connecting around things that they love, mainly health and wellness, food and drink, music. So I do think that there is a future where there might be this really interesting hybrid business model that allows for venues and for event promoters to open up the aperture of who they can commune around their, you know, their music or their passion. And I think, again, that's a really interesting green shoot for the future.
That is interesting. So Kim and Lynn, you both operate venues. Is there kind of a short-term, streaming opportunity, kind of a fanless, guestless
People are getting
environment?
very, very creative. I liked what Naomi said about outdoor events, and I'm hoping that there can be some sort of streamlined process to help us. Like, I'd love to take over McLaren Park, which is right by my house, and like do some outdoor socially distanced events. There's venues like Riptide and Amados who are doing outdoor concerts right now, but on a really small scale, where they get to sell like their little cocktails to go, and it's really actually helping the neighborhoods to like have a positive outlook, and the bands are playing for free just because it's like so awesome. And I think that we really just want clear guidelines, and we want relaxed rules from the city. We want because you're talking about with independent venues in San Francisco, a group of people that's very scrappy, that's been at war for a decade. And the fact that we still exist means that we know how to survive. We're going to survive, but it's going to take a lot more ingenuity than we're used to. So what we would like is just for there to be some give and take with the city. Please let us, please don't let us lump us in with phase 4 reopening for big concert halls. Please let like someone with a type 47 license that has a kitchen. Perhaps we can open as a restaurant with restaurants if we follow all the guidelines you've set out, instead of just saying, if you are an entertainment venue, you cannot open. Why not let us sort of adapt what we are considered right now? That's what I'm hoping for, that we just don't get, because we were the first to close, and we don't want to be the last to reopen. We want to have an income so that we survive, because it's tough.
I'll just jump on what Lynn was saying. There's a big difference between an 18,000 seat venue and the smaller venues, for sure. And much to what Julia was saying, like, this is a time for innovation and creativity, as odd as that sounds. And even in our world, we have created what we're calling socially distanced manifests, seating manifests. So if we're not headed that way in terms of Warriors games or any of the like Ariana Grande concerts, but there might be content in the future that might be interested in coming to Chase Center and doing it in a socially, distanced and responsible way. And so we just want to be ready for that. My message to the staff has just been, let's get ready, because our business model has been disrupted. I went through 9/11 and I saw how things changed before 9/11 and after 9/11. And so we jumped on it quick, and we're trying to just be nimble and flexible and understand not that the way things used to be. I hope we go back to that, because people want to congregate. I think Julia was saying it's in our DNA to gather and be social and to enjoy things together. You see it on the beach, you see it in the park, you see it in our venues, you see it at our bars. So it's going to come back. There's no doubt about that. It's just, how can we minimize the collateral damage, and how can we evolve our businesses along the way?
Ben, just to pick up on something Lynn was saying, what should all the members of the Nightlife community be asking for? And should they be asking local government, state government? Where should they be kind of focusing their efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question. Am I muted? Can you guys hear me? Okay. That's a great question. The first thing for me, I can tell you what I'm doing. So first of all, I don't have an inherent mistrust of government, right? I believe that the mayor and city hall has smarter public health experts than what I can learn on Google. That's me, right? And so, I do hear a lot of negativity and a lot of overthrow the government speech come out of this. I think people are really understandably angry. They're feeling terrified, and they feel like they need to do something. And how could somebody tell them to do something when they know better, or whatever it is, right? I don't have that's not my personal take. I think that we're actually lucky here. We have leaders that actually care about nightlife. It is not like that in other places, right? So our mayor actually loves going out. She has talked about partying from the time I have known her for 10 years. We have multiple supervisors who have made nightlife like an actual like a pillar of what they stand for, which is incredible, because from what I hear, I've been here about 20 years, but before my time here, that would be unheard of. Nightlife was seen as a nuisance. So, the first thing I say is advocate, but advocate in a positive way, and do so understanding that these people are making really difficult decisions, right? Like, I have a preschooler. Our preschool has been canceled. People rely on preschools to be open and summer camps in order to go to work, especially underserved communities. And they may prioritize preschool over bars, right? And we may have to swallow and say, you know what? All of the people who have to work for a living need to go to work. And if they're at home taking care of their kid, they can't. So we need to just swallow it. So that's, it's not to say we should sell off what matters to us. We should very passionately advocate, but we do need to understand, I think, that these decisions are terrible. It's I think the term I've heard from the Obama administration was that they eat shit sandwiches all day. That's all they do, right? And I think that our leaders are doing their best. We may not agree with everything, but I think they're doing their best, right? That said, I think we need to really, really, really advocate on our behalf, and for a few things. One of them is this idea of outdoor space. The lucky thing is we had, the city administrator, Naomi, just talked about how important that is. So people care. The people at the highest ranks of City Hall are listening and are going for this, but we need to advocate firmly and strongly for it. And remember, the general public in San Francisco has just gotten used to a very, very quiet ambient sound for the last 2 months, right? And they're used to a quiet that maybe is something they haven't heard ever in San Francisco. And so when people empty out on the streets and there's somebody with a guitar playing, or there's life on the streets, there's going to be sound that comes along with that. And we're going to have to advocate strongly for it, because it's not going to be all roses, and they're not going to greet us with roses and flowers around us. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think is really important is alcohol is not the devil. And there are groups in San Francisco who think that alcohol is the devil. There are supervisors right now who don't understand why anybody would drink alcohol, or what the service it provides, or the community of venues that serve alcohol. So, it does seem like the city's going to let restaurants open before bars. Small bars serve a really, really important service for their communities, for the economy, for the culture of San Francisco, whether it's something in Calle 24, a Latinx bar, or somewhere in the Castro, or somewhere in Russian Hill. They're serving a really essential service to the community there. And we're going to need to advocate for that, because there's a lot of people who are going to jump on this opportunity to shut down alcohol. And they're going to use any excuse they can to try to shut it down. And again, we should not be rude or upset, but we should be firm and make our case really carefully. So those are the two big things for me right now. I mean, the ABC, with a wave of their wand, just removed restrictions that have been on us that we thought were set in stone. And guess what? The city didn't burn down, right? Everything's fine, right? Okay, so a bunch of people went out in the marina this weekend. We can deal with that, right? Like, we got to teach marina kids to put a mask on their face. That's hard sometimes, but we got to do it, right? So, but anyway, the city's fine, right? So we should be questioning the orthodoxy that we've lived with for the last 20 years. We should be thinking outside of the box, and we should be really pushing hard to try out new things and creative solutions.
This is a real-time experiment for sure. We're getting a lot of
and we're gonna be fine. It's okay, everyone. Look at this. We're doing delivery cocktails. Oh my God, right? oh, everything's okay. What, who would have thought, right? So Lynn, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? Is that also as a venue, and I love my bars too, but as a venue, it's been made so that we can only make money with bar sales. It's not like we went into this to sell drinks, but the whole system is broken, which I'm hoping we can maybe look at this later. But frankly, yeah, so I see no difference between a restaurant opening. Food is more essential than liquor for sure, but not eating in a restaurant. So I'm not sure why one gets prioritized over the other, as Ben said. And then I look at someplace like Vesuvio's in North Beach and I go, oh, they've got that little alley next to them. Perhaps they could allow them to put some tables out there because it's such a cramped little bar there. Yeah, and I hope that we don't lose even more of our bars because they're as endangered as venues are right now. So thank you, Ben.
So Kim, what kind of solutions do you see for a big venue like the one you manage? Are we going to see like new technologies, new practices, new policies?
Yes, you're going to see all of that and more. There is a affiliation of all the arenas across the country for NBA, NHL, and so we're crowdsourcing, working together to come up with new plans. My team came up with 175 new action items that we potentially could take once we know the government's going to tell us what our restrictions are, but we just wanted to be ready with those ideas. So I'm working with NBA fellow peers from other NBA arenas, other NHL arenas, because the number one thing that we do is provide a safe environment for guests to come to. Pre-COVID, safety was about protecting from the intruder. Now it's the invisible intruder in COVID. So we've created a health and hygiene department that's dedicated to disinfecting and sanitizing, not just cleaning anymore. It's taking it to that next level and then being accountable. And we're just working on protocols with the NBA, and the NBA is working with infectious disease doctors and our medical team as well here on the ground. So we've got a lot of people that are helping inform. We're just waiting. We're just getting ready, and we're just waiting for the opportunity. And like everybody said, we'll just see what happens. It's a hurry up and wait for us, because we will. Of everybody here, we will be the last ones out to emerge back into the sunlight.
That's right. As we go through the various phases, Lynn, how are we going to get people back to live music? How is that part of our culture going to kind of reassert itself as we do reopen?
I just think that we'll adapt, and at least in the rock and roll world, we're dealing with a younger demographic who I think is a little bit more crazy in a good way, and just maybe feeling more invincible than others might. I just think it's so essential to mental health. It's also so essential to the identity of our city that this is going to be in our rearview mirror at some point. We're going to get back, and we don't know how long it's going to take to get there, but we have to, because it's ingrained in our identity and our culture here in San Francisco.
And Julia, you've obviously built a business on physical events. You've always had the capacity to kind of ticket digital events, but how are those two worlds going to merge in the future?
Well, what we're seeing, and what we can't predict the future, and I tell the team that it's not our job to predict the future, but it is our job to prepare for anything. However, again, we get these sort of glimpses into how people are using the platform in any way they can to build their businesses and to keep communities together. And so far, we're seeing smaller events, smaller hyper-local events starting to emerge in countries where there has been an easing of the restrictions. Now, who knows what kind of shape that takes in the future, but it does give us an indication of something that we thought may be true as people sort of re-emerge and reconnect, which is that they want to be in places that they trust, either that everybody's going to have the same sort of protocol on safety, or they it's their beloved local venue or bar or restaurant. So we're starting to see that take shape. It's very, very early days though. However, I think that there's this I think that there's this bridge between, you know, being able to produce content or produce live streams with a lower overhead cost and reach a broader audience, as well as, you know, and use that to sort of connect with a broader audience, extend your brand, and maybe subsidize revenue. We're seeing online events be hosted more frequently with lower ticket prices. And again, the growth has been, you know, nothing short of explosive in terms of people coming to the platform to use Eventbrite to market their online events and to charge for them. I think that I'd be curious to hear sort of Lynn's experience, but I think one of the things that has been remarkable is just the outpouring of love and support that ticket buyers and who, you know, are fans and patrons of creators have shown during this time. We've seen a really big, overwhelming response from ticket holders to donate their tickets back instead of requesting a refund if an event had to be canceled, or taking a credit for a future event through a gift card, or just above and beyond fundraising. I know one of my favorite venues, Piano Fight, they held a really successful crowdfunding campaign and have created this sort of patronage of piano fighters membership. And, you know, I think that's just like, that power of community is stronger than ever. And how do we, what we're thinking about right now is how do we be the wind behind the backs of our customers when restrictions do ease and we can get back together? How do we help drive trust with attendees? How do we help market events and reach a broader audience? How do we help, you know, reconnect those communities? That's the work that's really fun, right? Versus reversing the engine, you know, and you know, doing some work around crisis management and refunds and all of the craziness that we've been thrown into. I think it's really about reimagining the future. And so we think that the, you know, smaller local events, outdoor events, and really like not underestimating the power of community are going to be really big trends in not just the US, but all over the world.
And, you know, I think what I'm hearing from everyone is that trust is going to be a huge component in bringing people back. And that cuts across technology, that cuts across large venues. They might, you know, a large venue might be able to communicate a plan, you know, and deploy a lot of technology, while a small venue relies much more on kind of the tightness of its community to reopen. So I think that maintaining and building that trust is going to be something that carries us all forward as we get through this. I think we want to have some time for questions from our audience, and we've got quite a few. Lynn, we'll start with you. D. Rubin is wondering how you might operate your venue at 50% or 75% capacity limits. I think that's been a proposal that's been aired. Would that work for you? And how would that work?
50% would be great to start with. I would even start with 25%, get 50 people in there, because so with social distancing in a small venue of our size is going to be a bit tricky because it's pretty small. So we're going to have to play it by ear. I think at first probably getting 50 people in is definitely a possibility. And we're looking at, you know, definitely changing from the last cash-only venue to credit cards and sneeze guards. And for some reason, my mother-in-law is sending me a bunch of face shields that her friend made. And my partners want to buy a big atomizer for like spraying disinfectant around. And, you know, we'll have ordering stations. Most importantly, for any of the venues that we're talking about in San Francisco and bars, we're uniquely qualified to take care of customers and like laying down the law. Like, we're not going to have any trouble if someone comes up without a mask. We'll say very politely, you know, get the fuck out of here, or take a mask, please.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that too.
Good.
Yeah, so the perception of safety and real safety is going to be really, really important going forward. But I do think there's business opportunity here. And at one point, a couple weeks ago, I thought that I kind of held this secret and I wasn't going to tell anybody, but then I realized that everybody was thinking the same thing, so I could just say it. So it does seem like venues are going to be limited at their capacity, in some cases very strictly. There's going to be real opportunity to essentially reserve space at a premium for groups of people. And that doesn't mean, jacking the price up and only the rich survive, but it means if you want space, you get it for a certain amount of time for a certain kind of set menu or set amount. And actually there's some business opportunity there for owners, because if you actually have reservations, which most bar owners don't run on reservations, but if you actually have, you can actually kind of project out sales and you have some visibility into what you're doing. So my business partner, Mark DeVito, described it as we're all in the bowling alley business now. So there's lanes and people are going to use them, and then you spray down the shoes and you clean out the bowling balls and you move them out, and then the next group comes in. And I do see that coming, and I see actual opportunity there. Not to paint a rosier picture than things are. We're in abject destruction right now, but there may be a little hope in this idea of reserving space.
And that takes me to another technology-related question. Stella Yu asks if contact tracing, now this is the concept that, if someone gets exposed to the coronavirus, that all of their contacts in like the past 2 weeks, I think it usually is, get alerted that they've possibly been exposed. So Stella is asking, and I think this might be best addressed by Julia or, and Kim, would you consider putting into ticketing apps, if an event organizer wanted it as a requirement, some interaction with tracing apps?
I think that when I considered this question, two things came to mind. One is that there are contact tracing technologies that are being, brought to market by Google and Apple, and there will be a great opportunity for us to integrate using our API into any type of tracing app. And so that will definitely be on our post-COVID roadmap. But the second thing is that a ticket effectively is a contact, right? So you when you're scanning in a ticket, the benefit of having a ticketed event or a ticketed venue is that you can scan in using the barcode app. Anybody who walks in the door, and you can know when they came, and we can do that in reverse, and you could check people out. So I think there's ways to really create that sense of tracing, but I also think that this is a bit different, which it's combining the benefit of the database technology that's being created for contact tracing and integrating it with the event data. And so I certainly see that as being something that we can support on the platform, and and as this becomes something that is adopted or is widely known to be a gate to opening a venue or an event, I mean, we're going to do anything we can to support getting people back together.
The thing I can add to that is, I know contact tracing and testing being widely available and not taking from others, like it needs to be the whole community needs to have easy access to testing. Those are two big hurdles that I think in particular we're watching what's happening in that space, because it's going to, for us in particular, with the number of people we have at an event, it's going to be important to watch that. I will say weekly I get a lot of vendors and entrepreneurs that are rushing into this space, offering some new opportunities. So there's a lot of American ingenuity that is happening around the contact tracing. Julia said it well, so I think this is one of those where we just have to wait and see what ends up coming through. It's good to hear Julia say, Apple and Google are really working hard on this in this space. Then there's privacy concerns, and that's another hurdle for that as well. So there's a lot to go, a lot of runway we have to make up to get past those two. But for us in particular, because we're so big, and to get back to our normal those are two criteria that we've heard mentioned a few times. We're watching this space. I'm hopeful that American ingenuity and something can make this a possibility for us, because I think it just will help us do that. We've watched South Korea, we're watching other parts of the world and seeing what they're doing. other parts of the world have very different cultures, very different things that they will accept. But we're still watching it to see, Disney in Shanghai and what they do and opened in Shanghai. Some of those things are going to come here, not the things, that won't be allowed by American culture, but it's been fascinating to watch their opening and what they're doing and how they're monitoring it, and how they're ramping up their capacity. So we're just keeping our eyes open everywhere, and contact tracing is going to be a key component of that. And I just haven't seen somebody that's got the magic bullet yet, but we'll see.
This is a unique aspect, I think, of American business culture. Everyone seems to get sued at some point. There's a question about venue insurance. Carrie Gray is asking Ben and Lynn if they've heard anything about kind of the cost of liability insurance. I'm sorry if I'm bringing up a sore subject. I know this is painful for a lot of small businesses to grapple with.
Well, insurance is not covering anything COVID related, as far as I know, for anybody that's through this. Liability moving forward, that's a really good question. Are they going to raise our rates because we are more liable for potentially making someone sick? I don't know. That's something that is gonna work out, I think, on the city level. But what I do want is for perhaps the city to work on. I know they have said that we don't have to pay our premiums for the times that we're closed, but even if we're allowed to reopen with a limited capacity, maybe they could work with the insurance companies to make sure we don't have to pay full rate, until things are back to normal. I'm not sure if that answers that question. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Ricardo Lara actually has made a number of moves for not just personal insurance, but business insurance. So the state insurance commissioner has been fairly active on the issue. Ben, any thoughts on kind of, just to add on to what Lynn said about advocating insurance reform?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a state thing, and we're hoping that they'll have some minimum. If you have a minimum set of protections in place, then you're not liable. I actually would expect that would come, because I don't think they want out of control lawsuits around this. But I'm more focused locally than on the state stuff. I know the Golden Gate Restaurant Association is kind of laser focused on that right now. So hopefully they can keep advocating for it.
I think there are a lot of great questions, and hopefully maybe we can continue like an open chat afterwards during the silent DJ part of things. Phil Derby has a great question. Are folks going to come out to events? Are they going to be hesitant to join crowds? I think, Kim, you talked about this a little. It's kind of part of human nature. It sounds like you're actually pretty bullish that people will resume that part of their lives.
I tend to be an optimist anyway, but there is some data to back up that optimism, and it comes from Live Nation, which is probably the world's largest event promoter and somebody we do a lot of business with. They did a survey about a week ago, and 90% of people said they were looking forward to coming back to an event within 6 months. And there was 70%, I think it was like 72 or 73%. Said they were looking forward to coming back to a sporting event. So, that's more than 50%. And so there's data to back this up. The other thing is in terms of refunds, and I know Ticketmaster and refunds, that's a hot button, and Live Nation's a hot button, and those are their policies. But the good news there is they've only had 10% of folks ask for refunds to date across all their shows. So like everybody thought the world was going to fall and the sky was falling. So it's sort of good to hear that it's only 10%. Maybe that grows to 30%, but that means 70% are still intending to come. So I take those as signs of optimism. It's just about again, I go back to, we just have to try and minimize the collateral damage between this moment in time and the time we can be back to that environment. And Julia said it, we have to evolve our businesses, we have to be nimble, we just have to be ready.
Can I just end? We have to go here. I know, Owen, and I want to let you do it, but can we just end on a note of hope? Is that? Can we try?
I think Kim had a good note of optimism there.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And what are your thoughts?
I just have two things I want to say before we go here. So one is I actually think we're poised for a renaissance in the city here. I think the city got away from what a lot of us loved about it in the last 5-10 years. I think it just became kind of sterile, and the art and the culture that we loved so much seemed to be disappearing. And I think we have a real opportunity right now to not have nightlife and entertainment and culture be like a part of the rebuilding, but actually be like the economic driver of bringing our commercial corridors back. And I think if we fight hard, we have a chance at that. And that's what I'm out there fighting for. Of course, right now it's horrible, but that's what we might be able to look forward to. And along with that's this idea of localization, which Audrey Joseph was what brought to my attention, which is if major acts and bands aren't touring the world for the next year, we're going to have to rely on local groups to do it. And a local group that maybe was never able to play a place like the Fillmore or a part of the Chase Center or Bottom of the Hill might have an opportunity now that they didn't have before. And so maybe there's a chance to really bring back up a real local music and culture scene. And I think we're poised for it. It's just we got to get through this really terrible phase right now.
I would just chime in that if history is any lesson to us, which it shows us time and time again, we can learn something by reading the history books. The Roaring 20s, we're sort of entering our own version of that 100 years later after the last great pandemic. And, you know, if you look at that renaissance of art and music and live entertainment, I would build on what Ben said and say that I do think that this is going to be marked by local artists, local community, and that events and live events and being together in real life is a staple of our society. So there is no doubt in my mind that we'll be back together soon.
Well, that is very hopeful.
Something optimistic too.
One more.
I will be killed by Parker if I don't say this, but the Independent Venue Alliance is a new organization that's growing. And we have a Because the Night webathon on May 30th through Light Rail Studios, which is to give big donors an opportunity to help local independent venues. So please tune into that May 30th, Light Rail Studios, Facebook or YouTube. Thank you. Shameless plug.
Excellent. Well, I know I need to hand things over to Dory Kamenong. I just want to thank our panelists, Ben Bleiman, Kim Stone, Lynn Schwartz, and Julia Hartz. Thank you all for your time. And Dory, it's over to you.
Thank you, guys. Hi, everybody. My name is Dory. I'm the Vice President of the Entertainment Commission. As we began planning today's summit in early March, we were very cognizant of the collective and very personal losses our industry was set to experience. We know each of you have felt the seismic impact on your businesses, but we also know you, our city's nightlife and entertainment folks. Y'all are scrappy, gritty, GSD, DIY, go home or go hard, a cast of misfits who work hard, play hard, and love hard. Each of you are fighting and innovating your business practices for your survival. And we're all on this unexpected and unwelcome rite of passage called COVID-19. We're each experiencing a collective and very personal evolution and forced to reimagine how we come together, how we do business, how we live, and how we make sense of all of this. And as all the questions of how launched, we thought of who. Who has the industry chops that would be the most helpful to our business leaders? Who has overcome these monster challenges and risen from the ashes? Who could bring meaningful hope and remind us of our resilience? And of course, I thought of Chip. I met Chip during my tenure at Glide, and for over a decade, I've had the honor to be one of the many grasshoppers to his master Poe. I shared seats with this epic leader, and he's superhuman. An auditorium seat, a bar stool, a church pew, a yoga mat. He's a New York Times best-selling author, the founder of JDV Hospitality, and the hospitality maverick who helped Airbnb founders turn their startup into a global hospitality brand. In Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder, he shares his unexpected journey at midlife from CEO to intern, learning about tech as the head of global hospitality and strategy, while also mentoring the CEO. He's the founder of the Modern Elder Academy, a new roadmap for midlife. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Chip Conley.
right there. There we go. And let's make sure we got a video.
Hi, Chip.
I'm coming to you from my bed. Dory, you should keep going. You're so damn good at this. Thank you. Thanks.
No, I'm not.
You did a great job. So, wow, I'm so honored to be with everybody. I really, literally am coming to you from my bed. This is my headboard, my Alebrijas Mexican spirit animal headboard here in Baja. I wish I could give everybody a individual and collective hug right now, because I know what you're going through, although this is worse than anything I've ever seen or we've ever seen before. And I know that part of what's going on is just the jumble of emotions. Having been an entrepreneur now for 33 years, 34 years, I get it. I get that sometimes you just feel the pain and suffering. Other days it's anxiety. Other days it's anger. And most days it's just confusion. And it's like, I don't even know what to make of it all. So what I'm going to try to do in the next 10 minutes or so, 10 to 12 minutes, is to try to help you understand collectively how to understand your emotions as an entrepreneur, as a leader, etc., and why that's important now. And I'm saying this, I'm not your psychologist, I'm not an armchair psychologist, I guess I am, but I'm saying this more from the place of knowing that we are the emotional thermostats. Those of us who are leaders in whatever capacity, we are the emotional thermostats for those we're leading, for those who are around us. We're not a thermometer. We actually set the climate and set the temperature. And the higher you are in your organization or in your group of people, whether it's just your friends or family, you have even a bigger impact on the contagious nature of our emotions. I've learned this from the dot-com bust in 9/11, from the Great Recession, from the San Francisco earthquake in 1989. And I'm going to give you 3 equations, what I call emotional equations, that I think will serve you well during this time as a leader and as an entrepreneur. The first one I want to just give you is despair equals suffering minus meaning. And I think that Dory and the team are going to actually send these out to you later. So you can write these down if you want, but if I go too quickly, just know that they'll be coming to you. So despair equals suffering minus meaning. My favorite book of all time is a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. If you think you're going through a difficult time right now, and you probably are, you're not going through the time that man was going through, as a bunch of other people were as well. He was in a concentration camp in World War II as a Jewish psychologist. And if you distill down the most famous book on meaning ever written, his book called Man's Search for Meaning, it comes down to basically this equation, that when there's a lot of suffering going on, and that's the constant in life, the 2 variables are despair and meaning. And so the question is, how do you actually create more meaning in your life when you're full of despair? Because let me do the math for you, like this emotional equation. So if you have 8, which is despair, equals 10 minus 2, 10 being suffering, 2 being meaning, if you could actually increase the meaning from 2 to 6, the way the math works, if 10 suffering is a constant, is that despair comes down from 8 to 4. So how do you do that? How do you find meaning in a shitty time like this? Well, let me tell you what I did initially when I started Joie de Vivre with the Phoenix Hotel, my first hotel of the 52 boutique hotels we created over my 24 years of being founder and CEO. The first one was the Phoenix. I was 26 years old in the Tenderloin, didn't know what the hell I was doing. And it wasn't that long after the Phoenix started that the San Francisco earthquake happened, and 1989, started in 1987. Before the earthquake happened, I had created something called the Wisdom Book. And literally, it was a little journal. And on some weekends, I would write in the journal, like in bullet points, what did I learn that week? When the earthquake happened in 89, October 89, man, there was no hotel business for a few months. And so I didn't have any money. I didn't know what to do. It was my only hotel. And so I picked up that Wisdom Book, which I'd only been using sparingly. And every single weekend, I would write down in bullet points, what did I learn that week? And if it was a particularly bad week, there were more bullet points and there were more lessons. Because the real message for this first equation is meaning. If you can create some meaning, some learning, some wisdom, something that you feel like you got out of this, even if it's a painful lesson, you can carry that forward. because as many leaders have said for a long time, sometimes they learn their best lessons in the worst times. All right, the second equation is an equation around anxiety, perfectly timed for the times we're in. 98% of anxiety comes from two sources, according to the social psychologists who specialize in anxiety. It's uncertainty and powerlessness. So if you know that those are the two, and it's not uncertainty time plus powerlessness, it's times. Because when you have both uncertainty and powerlessness, it's combustible. So what do you do to solve for that? You solve for that by actually creating an anxiety balance sheet. And when you get the materials on this, you'll see a link to my daily blog called Wisdom Well, where I wrote, I said, here's how you create an anxiety balance sheet. Basically, you figure out what's the thing you're anxious about. Okay, my club's closed. I have no idea when it can open anymore. My landlord's, wanting me to pay rent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, make a list of what do you know, and then make a list of what you don't know. Then make a list of what can you influence, and then make a list of what you can't influence. So in essence, two balance sheets, one related to uncertainty, certainty versus uncertainty, and one related to powerlessness versus powerfulness. When you actually take all of this crap in your head and you put it on paper and you start to acknowledge there are some things you do know and there are some things you can influence, it starts to open the door to the fact that you feel a little bit more certainty and maybe a little more powerfulness. I don't want to overemphasize this point, because I would say at this stage of where we are in the pandemic, it's particularly painful, this one. But over time, I think creating clarity around certainty and powerfulness is a really important thing, not just for you, but for your team as well. And then the third equation I'm going to share is one that's a happier one. I have a despair one, an anxiety one, and then the third one's about happiness. I went to Bhutan in 2009 to study the Gross National Happiness Index. For those of you who don't know it, Bhutan in 1972 became the first country in the world to basically say, we're not focused on GNP, now it's called GDP, like gross domestic product. We're focused on GNH, gross national happiness. And they started looking for measuring tools to understand, how do you measure something that's as intangible as happiness? And after having spent a week and a half there in Bhutan, I came back with an equation that ultimately led to a TED Talk I gave in 2010. And the whole premise of this is that happiness equals wanting what you have divided by having what you want. Let me unpack that equation for a moment. Wanting what you have means gratitude. To want what you have means you appreciate what you have. It means that you actually you are not so focused on the future or that what you haven't gotten yet or what you may lose. You're focusing on this moment, what you do have, whether it's your health, whether it's your love of your family, whether it's a brand of a business that you've created that still is going to live on, whether it's your reputation, etc. There are things you have that you can actually hold on to. The bottom of that equation is not wanting what you have, it's having what you want. To have what you want means you go strive for something you currently don't have. The American culture and whole premise is based upon that. It's the pursuit of happiness. To pursue is to chase something with hostility. So do we chase happiness with hostility? Yes, we do occasionally. So the bottom of that pyramid, the bottom of that equation is gratification. So in some ways, all happiness is gratitude divided by gratification. And at this point, just know that gratification is something not to focus on right now. Focus on gratitude, because if you do, you're going to actually be happier. Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be any more profitable, successful, or closer to even be able to pay your bills. But it is actually a step toward creating happiness. And actually, I'm a big believer that happiness creates success as opposed to success creating happiness. Last thought, and then I'm done. Failure is an option. And I'm not saying this to depress you. I'm just telling you this because it's the truth. Failure is an option. And I have had a number of failures over my history as a restaurateur, a hotelier, and owning spas. I own Kabuki Springs and Spa. Who wants to get a massage right now and hang out in a Japanese communal bath? I still own that business now for 22 and a half years now. Maybe it should be a nightclub. Bottom line is, sometimes a failure can be dressed up to look like a noble experiment. Long ago, 1998, Joie de Vivre, my company, created the first boutique campground called Costa Noa. This is 7 years before the word glamping had ever even been coined. And of course, Costa Noa is not exactly a glamping place. It's a little more middle class. But if you've ever been there, it's halfway between Santa Cruz and Half Moon Bay on Highway 1. And we put so much love and care and energy into creating the place. And it launched actually relatively well in 1998. But by 2000 and 2001, the dot-com bust came along and all of our weekday business was gone. And we still had weekend business, but you can't make a business run based upon 2 days a week in a 7-day-a-week business, unless you're some nightclubs. But we couldn't do that at Costa Noa. And ultimately, I had to sell that business for 10 cents on the dollar. I thought of it as a failure, but today I look at it as a noble experiment because I learned so much from that experience that I could take forward when we opened the Hotel Vitale and decided to have a yoga studio up on the top floor, because we learned at Costa Noa, people, business travelers wanted, especially business travelers in groups, wanted group yoga. So in sum, you are not your business. You are a human being. Your business is a business. A business is subject to the fluctuations of the market, to a potential economic depression. But just because we are in a serious recession that may become a depression, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go into an emotional depression. You are a constantly evolving human being, just like me. If you're not constantly changing, then something's going wrong. I would finish by just saying, for those of you who have never read it, read the poet Rumi's poem, The Guest House. The Guest House is a poem about the fact that emotions are going to come through us, just like the weather comes through the sky. The rain doesn't stay for 20 or 40 or 60 days in a row. It comes and it goes just like the sun does. But the emotions we're going to have are just as Rumi had 750 years ago. The best thing we can do is to let them just come through us, welcome them, whether they're a good or a bad emotion, and then let them run through us and move forward with our business. And knowing that as a human, we're going to get through this. And probably on the other side of this, we're not just going to be a better human, but we're probably going to be a better entrepreneur and leader as well. So with that, I'm going to give it back to the team and just say, thanks for letting me join you from Baja. Love you all. I totally get where you're at right now and have a lot of respect for your resilience.
Hey, Chip.
Hello, Maggie.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was really inspiring and hopeful.
Stay human. Michael Franti, stay human.
Also, I love your headboard. I need to get me one.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing your Pura Vida chill vibes to all of our anxious minds during this time. I think we needed that. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to wrap up here. I'm so humbled by all of our speakers and participants today. Would you believe it? We had about 600 people watching our virtual summit. I'm astounded by that. Today we heard Mayor Breed and our Public Health Officer, Dr. Tomás Aragón, about the latest in San Francisco's response to COVID-19. We heard from our City Administrator, Naomi Kelly, the Director of our Office in Economic and Workforce Development, always a mouthful, Joaquín Torres, and our city's Chief Economist, Ted Egan, about the impacts COVID-19 has had on our city, as well as our local nightlife and entertainment industry. We also heard from a pretty incredible panel of entertainment and nightlife representatives about the future of our industry. And those were ranging from small business owner and the president of our commission, Ben Bleiman, as well as owner of indie live music venue, Bottom of the Hill, Lynn Schwartz, all the way to the general manager of our brand new arena at Chase Center, Kim Stone, and the CEO and co-founder of a platform that serves a community of nearly 1 million event creators like yourselves around the world, Julia Hartz of Eventbrite. And finally, we heard from thought leader Chip Conley in his keynote address about themes of despair, anxiety, that feeling of powerlessness we all have right now, but also happiness and a path forward to gratitude as it relates to coping with this unique and challenging situation. So thank you again so much to all of our participants and our panelists for being a part of this today. I'm so impressed by all of you, and I'm really grateful to everyone for tuning in. Our entertainment industry is tough. You are fighters, and I know that all of you will do everything it takes to survive this. Your businesses are so much more than physical spaces. They hold the memories of our collective experience as human beings, and it is all of you who create that feeling in all of us. And we're going to do everything in our power we can to support your recovery from this. A huge thank you again to our co-host of today's event and moderator of our first panel, Manny Yekutiel, and Sam Favela for handling our technology needs. Again, there's no way I could have done this without either of you. I have a few key reminders before we end today's virtual summit. The Entertainment Commission will send out a newsletter this week to recap on what you heard today. So if you have not previously signed up for our mailing list, please visit our website to sign up and receive updates from our office. Again, our summit was recorded today, so we will include a link to that in our newsletter, and we will post it online later this week in case you missed or want to rewatch any of it. I personally am looking forward to rewatching it so that I can take more of a participant view or attendee view of it. We also encourage you to fill out the Nightlife and Entertainment survey that we put out in the last couple of weeks. We have kept that open. It's in several languages, and we're collecting this anonymous information about your business's economic status so that we can share it with some of the leaders that were on this call today. We've received over 130 responses so far, but we'd really love to see more. This information is really helpful, and we're going to share it with our city's Economic Recovery Task Force, which both Ben Bleiman and I are participants on. We also encourage all of you to participate in the Dear SF digital storytelling campaign by posting a love letter to San Francisco about your own business or a business you love and support on social media using the hashtag DearSF. So next up, without further ado, is our virtual happy hour. Manny and Sam are going to put up a slide momentarily, I think, that has the link to our happy hour Zoom. But the link is pretty easy if you're paying attention. It is tinyurl.com/SF virtual happy hour. Okay, you can also find this link on our Eventbrite page or in your registration email. Thank you again to Bar and Restaurant McCondre and my dear friends and owners, Aaron Paul and Jake Roberts, for hosting our virtual happy hour. Aaron will be playing music to get the dance party going. And just a reminder that you will all need to be on mute so that you can enjoy the music, but your faces will actually be visible this time around, and you'll be able to use both group and direct chat to continue the conversation. So go and grab your favorite beverage. Here's my bear bottle beer. I decided to go and grab it during a break and head on over to the next Zoom. So that concludes our summit agenda for today. And thank you again for joining us.